The architecture of fear and how to walk out of it. I want to start with a question. How old were you when someone first told you that you might go to hell? 6, 7, 5? Think about that for a moment. Before you could drive a car, before you could vote, before you could sign a contract or enter into any legally binding agreement, someone sat you down and told you that you were in danger of eternal conscious torture, and you believed them because you were a child, and that is exactly when they needed you to believe it. I am Don Jackson. I am the founder of the Prodigal movement. I spent decades inside religious institutions. I preached, I served, I believed, and then one day I started asking the questions nobody in the building was allowed to ask. What I found on the other side of those questions did not destroy my faith. It destroyed my fear, and those are not the same thing. Here is what the historians know, what the theologians know, what the scholars at Princeton and Yale and Cambridge have documented in peer-reviewed research that somehow never made it into Sunday school. The word hell in your English Bible is a translation of the Hebrew word Sheol. Sheol means the grave. That is all it means. The place where the dead go, not a lake of fire, not a chamber of eternal torture. The grave. The character of Satan in the original Hebrew Bible was not God's enemy. He was God's employee. In the book of Job, one of the oldest texts in the biblical canon, "Hey Satan" is a title. It means the accuser. This figure sits on the divine council. He works for God. He does his job. The fire-breathing, horned, pitchfork-wielding prince of darkness who rules a kingdom of eternal torment, that character was assembled over centuries, borrowed from Persian mythology, expanded during political crises, refined by Roman Catholic theologians who needed a management tool. And then, the hell. Most of you picture when you close your eyes was designed by a 14th century Italian poet named Dante Alighieri. Not Jesus, not the prophets, not a council of theologians. A poet. And the institution that needed your fear adopted his imagery wholesale because it worked. Now I need to slow down here because I am not standing here to tell you God is not real. I am not standing here to tell you that your spiritual hunger is naive or your faith was wasted. I am standing here to make a distinction that I believe is one of the most important distinctions a human being can make in their lifetime. There is a difference between God and the institution that claims to represent God. There is a difference between genuine spiritual truth, the kind that produces freedom, wholeness, and genuine human flourishing, and a control system dressed in religious language. And the test is simple. Does it make you more free or less free? Does it make you more loving or more afraid? Does it send you deeper into your own capacity for wisdom, compassion, and truth? Or does it make you more dependent on the authority of the institution? Real truth sets you free. Fear keeps you managed. Here is why this matters right now. Today, in 2026, the fear architecture did not retire when the Enlightenment arrived. It did not pack up its tools when the Reformation challenged Rome. It did not disappear when science gave us better answers to questions that used to require supernatural explanations. It adapted. Look at what is happening in this country. Christian nationalism is not a revival. It is the fear architecture wearing a flag. It uses the language of divine judgment to sanctify political power. It frames every question as a spiritual threat. It tells you that to doubt the authority of certain leaders is to doubt God himself. Prosperity gospel is the fear architecture wearing wealth. It told poor people, and I watched this happen, that their poverty was evidence of spiritual failure, that God's favor looked like a private jet. It extracted billions of dollars from people who could not pay their light bills by weaponizing their hope and their shame in the same breath. Purity culture is the fear architecture wearing innocence. It installed shame about the body so deep that therapists are still excavating the damage in adults who have been in therapy for a decade. The tools are the same. The fear of divine punishment, the promise that only this authority can rescue you, the warning that your own mind is the enemy. Only the costumes have changed. Now, here is where I want to offer you something. Not another doctrine, not a replacement theology, not a new belief system to install over the top of the old one. Something better. The most rigorous science, philosophy, and neuroscience of our time is converging on a conclusion that the mystics of every tradition have been pointing toward for thousands of years. You are not broken. You were never broken. The default mode network in your brain, which neuroscientists can now observe in real time on an MRI scan, generates the story of a separate, isolated, threatened self. That sense of being alone and guilty and under judgment is not a spiritual reality. It is a biological program running a survival filter. When that program is quieted in documented, peer-reviewed scientific studies, consciousness does not diminish. It expands. Subjects describe an all-encompassing clarity, no separation from anything, pure awareness without a center. The physicist Bernardo Kastrup and the cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman are arriving at the same place from different directions. That the boundaries between you and everything else are perceptual constructs, not ontological realities. That what appears to be 8 billion separate people is something more like 8 billion expressions of a single awareness. A whirlpool in the ocean, not separate from the ocean, not condemned by the ocean, not abandoned by the ocean, made of the ocean. The mystics called it union with God. The physicists call it the unified field. The neuroscientists call it ego dissolution. It is the same thing, and not one of those frameworks requires your fear. Not one of them requires your submission to an institution. Not one of them tells you that you arrived in the world already guilty. I want to close with this. I left the institution 11 years ago. It was the hardest thing I have ever done and the loneliest. Because when you leave the institution, you do not just leave the building. You leave the community, the language, the identity, the entire framework through which you understood yourself and the world. And for a while, there is nothing. Just the terrifying, uncomfortable, wide open space of not knowing. But here's what I found in that space. Everything I had been looking for inside the institution was always already there. Not behind the right doctrine, not on the other side of enough obedience, not waiting to be granted by an authority who held the keys. It was there, immediate, direct, available. The connection I had been performing inside the institution was real all along. I just did not need the institution to access it. I did not leave God. I left the people who were using God as a weapon. And if you are in this room today or watching this, wherever you are, and something in what I just said named a thing you have been carrying for a long time without language for it, I want you to know that you are not alone. You are not lost. You are not damned. You are not a prodigal who wandered too far from the Father. You are someone who had the courage to keep asking after everyone around you stopped. That is not rebellion. That is the most spiritual thing a human being can do. The Prodigal movement was built for exactly you. Welcome home. Selah.